Hi, Mark Mahoney, Special Education Interviews, Module 3. I'd first like to talk about the participants in my interviews. I first met with Jenna Jones, an assistant principal here at my high school. My high school has 2,400 kids in it. Ms. Jones is in charge of special education as well as curriculum and technology. I chose her. She is new to our building. She used to be at a middle school of about 200 kids where she was involved with special education every day. One of the reasons why I chose her was to get her perspective from the two places she's been at. I thought that she could give me some good detail and data that she's lived and researched, and was very glad that she was able to help me in this. Micah Veach, our special education department chair of our high school, he's been our department chair for the last 5 years. He deals with every caseload, oversees the entire department, and has a great knowledge of one-on-one cases. And I work with him almost weekly because his students are in my classroom, and we have a very good working relationship. And I wanted to get a perspective on his side of the desk. And the last one is Kirk Matthew. He is adaptive PE for the entire district. He is also a physical education teacher, but does not have a home school. So he works with elementary, middle school, and high school students and works with them for their 12 years or longer in education. With the child find procedures, after speaking with Ms. Jones, she is directly involved in searching and evaluating the students, working with parents and their recommendations. She's also part of the screening process. When she was at the middle school with only 200 kids, she met with every single student and every single parent on a yearly basis. She had a hands-on approach with them. At this high school, it's a little bit different with that many people and that many kids. She has a certain area that she's in charge of, directly working with the social worker, but does not have as much interaction with all special education and child find procedures. Micah Veach, our department chair, is not directly involved, but has knowledge of the procedures and the documentation. He will get that from the social worker or get that from the parents through the school system. He has great knowledge of the procedures, but it does not affect his day-to-day operations. Kirk Matthew is not active at all in child find procedures. He will get the information from the administrator, from the parents, and he will follow those procedures as requested by them. When I asked him the most challenging part, I thought it was interesting. All three kind of came up with the same answers. I didn't think I'd get that. I thought I'd get three different perspectives from them. As far as Ms. Jones goes, her biggest concern, or her most challenging part, was having knowledge of every student in the building. Like I said, we're a very, very large high school, and with her other job, she cannot get to know those kids like she'd like to. At the middle school where she previously was, she knew every kid for 3 years and was a part of their lives. In a much smaller setting, she was able to do that. With that being said, she's working really hard on building relationships with the kids here, and it is a challenging part of her day-to-day. As far as Mr. Veach goes, it's time. There's just not enough time for him to go to every IEP, sit down and work with one kid, and then something else happens in the building and he's got to race off to put out a fire there. Being pulled in a lot of different directions and having time to spend with each kid and give them the one-on-one structure that he has set for them. Kirk, 23 different schools he's at. Not every day, but he has a list where he goes to all schools every week, spending time with those kids, having those kids remember who he is. He sometimes looks like a stranger coming into the building, and it's hard for him to be at that many schools and do everything that he needs to do, and being able to trust the paras and the teachers that he works with, and gives them the information they need to help the kids be successful. As far as their most rewarding part of their job, all three of them love being with kids, building relationships with these kids, building trust with them, and seeing them grow. Miss Jones really likes and enjoys the support she gets. She's a big advocate for the students, and likes to get to know them and see how they develop over the years in school. Mr. Beach and Mr. Matthew was when the teachers of these students take ownership, take pride, and see those kids grow and develop and build a rapport with them where they feel comfortable in their classroom and they enjoy coming to their classroom. Their advice on supervision. Mrs. Jones, after speaking with her, she gave me some great advice on follow-up meetings. After you schedule a meeting and you meet as a group, to follow up and meet with that individual on a one-to-one basis. See how they're doing. Let the student do the talking. Be a listening board for them. See what you can do for them. And working with paras. Paras live the schedule. They see the hallway interaction. They see how they act from one class to another. The paras are the lifeblood, and getting a feel for what they do is extremely important with that supervision. Mr. Beach, he tries to meet with them in as many ways as possible, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's an email, whether it's a weekly phone call, where he can communicate with everybody involved with the student's life. And I think that's extremely important and something I highlighted in my notes. I don't think you can meet enough or talk enough or listen enough to help these students. And Mr. Matthew was the observations. Part of his job is to write a weekly report, kind of a journal of what he's seen, what he's working on, and he takes those notes back to the teachers and have them add to that journal. It's a work in progress, and really helps them reflect on what's going well, what's not going well, and the reasons why. Just because a lesson didn't work, it's more important to know why it didn't work, what were the surroundings, what was the issues that were taking place, and to be able to reflect on that and move forward. Working effectively with parents. Communication. Communication is what everybody stated. You don't know unless you ask, and I think it's important to ask the right question and to have the parents and teachers be involved in every aspect. Going to meetings, documenting the meetings, and try to build relationships outside of school and see what's going on in their lives and what we can do for them, not just in school but outside of school. And communicate with parents. We see the kids sometimes more than the parents do, and being able to communicate with parents about a child is extremely important. Working with regular education teachers, Miss Jones' responsibility is to kind of be that common link between special education and regular education. She's there for both of us. She's a sounding board. She allows us to communicate with her. She can see both sides of it, and we can come to a consensus so that we can all work and strive towards that one goal. Mr. Beach is there, and I've used him multiple times on support, whether the kid needs to leave my classroom for the day because he had a bad morning, or gives me advice on things that he sees works in his classroom and for me to try it in my classroom. And that's been very helpful, I think, for both of us. I've done the same thing for him. This worked well for me, and then he'll try it, and it works well for him. So we're constantly communicating as far as that goes. And Mr. Matthews' main job is to provide equipment with kids with disabilities or other services. He has access to that where we don't. He shows us how to use it. He also has a little bit of money that through his department that they can provide some equipment for us for a particular lesson. Advice for the first year administrator. I think this is not only administration, but in any type of job, is being able to build relationships. Ms. Jones and Mr. Veach kept talking about building relationships, whether it's with the students, co-workers, parents. When you have a relationship and build trust with them, I think you're going to get the most out of their child and out of the building. Understand that not everything's going to go as planned. Be prepared for things that come up. Understand that you need help, and it's okay to ask for help, ask for advice. Have a plan, but understand that plan might fall apart a little bit, and getting advice and getting help is okay. If you don't know the answer or you want feedback, it's extremely important. And Mr. Veach also said to know the laws, to understand them, and to make sure that you have access to them, and work with everybody involved. Role of special education and principal. Ms. Jenna Jones talked about working with the social worker and the school psychologist, and also the district building, getting help from them when needed, seeing what worked well in the past, and what we can do for those kids and meet those goals. Communication, letting people know what's going on, maybe not just with email, stopping by the office, having a one-to-one conversation, even if it's for a couple minutes, I think helps clear things up and make sure everybody's on the same page. IEP meetings, I feel like I attend 4 or 5 a month, and they've been very, very helpful. To be able to attend it, to hear everybody talk is extremely important. Yeah, you can read it in the email and you can see it, but to attend that meeting, to see the faces, one, you're a part of it, and I think it's really important to be a leader that way. They see you there and they know you want to work. Coach Kirk Matthew talked about just listening. Sometimes teachers just need to vent. Sometimes teachers just want to hear what you have to say. Be a good listener. Be a good listener. Have an open door policy, and I think things will be very successful. As far as characteristics in an aspiring administrator, you have to want to. You have to be passionate about your job. You have to be passionate about your kids, and kids can see that. Kids are very, very smart, and all 3 said that kids can tell if you're having a bad day. Kids can tell if you're having a good day, and being there for kids, being there for them when things are good, being there for things when things aren't so good. And Ms. Jones, the last thing that I took from her was not everything's black and white. Just because it worked for one child doesn't mean it'll work for another child. Sitting back, thinking, reflecting is a good characteristic from them. Moral ethics, understanding the laws, and being there for your students. Being there for the building, being there for the community are skills that would work not only as administrator, but I think in any type of profession. After doing this project, I thought that really opened my eyes to all the avenues that we must travel through in special education. It did make me feel good that a lot of the questions I asked to all 3, they answered the same way. Everybody's kind of thinking the same thing. Everybody's wanting the same thing for our students. And the one thing I took about it was passion and communication. Passion and communication for every aspect in your life. And I think you're going to get the most out of yourself, the people around you, and most importantly, the students.